Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into helping teens trust themselves. And before we do that, we are going to adjust this week's parenting moment a little bit. We're going to try something new. So we're going to do a how to react when your child does X. And this week we're going to do how to react when your child says, I hate you. And this is one of those things where it's like, it's not really an entire topic, but it's pretty frequent with teenagers. And I thought it would be just a good, short, quick topic to hit. So give me your thoughts. How do you handle it when your child says, I hate you?
Well, that can be an interesting experience. And I think everybody's a little bit different, right? Because for some, that could be really painful and hurtful. For others, we can recognize that there's a lot of emotion coming from that and not necessarily any truth, just a lot of frustration and a way to get you upset and angry as a parent. And sometimes that's our children's goal, right? Is to make us upset or to get a reaction out of us. And so, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I recall a time when any of our kids have ever said that to us. Do you?
I don't know if they said those exact words, but they have said we're ruining their life.
Sure.
That has been said.
I feel like if they haven't said that, you're not doing it right as a parent.
Yeah, probably not.
Guess what's going to come this week?
But really, you gotta check your own emotions as a parent and recognize that, this is probably not how they truly feel. And it has more to do with their ability to kind of manage whatever's happening in their lives, whether they're frustrated with a consequence or a rule or whatever's going on that's led to that. Honestly, I probably wouldn't really react. I wouldn't give it a lot of attention if it were me. I guess my theory is that if I give it a lot of attention, they're going to continue to use it in the future. But if I kind of just ignore that and allow them to express whatever they're feeling in the moment, it's likely to discontinue. And I don't know if that's going to be true for everyone, but that's kind of been my way of handling things as a parent. And again, I don't think my kids have ever said those words, but they've said hurtful things. And I generally just allow it to be said and allow them to experience what they want to experience and express what they want to express. And then we work through what's really happening and focus on what's really going on, because that's likely not the issue.
Right.
That's what I would think. It's probably an unmet need that they have, is what they just don't know how to express it in a better, more productive way. Maybe to speak to it, if you're able to not react in that moment, because of course, ideally, you're not going to want to react back with something else. You're going to flip your lid back at them, right? And say something hurtful and regret what you say. So ideally, you wouldn't want to react. But I think maybe to speak to some of the aftermath of that and checking your thoughts and where they start going, like, well, if you're taking it personal, what are you making it mean about you? Because that's real easy to do. If your kids or anybody, I would say, says something hurtful to you, you're going to start making it mean something about you. So just really checking your thoughts of like, why are they saying that? And making it mean more something about them and not about you. But also you could question like, okay, these things are being said, so how do I want to show up? How do I want to help this relationship? How do I want to respond?
Yeah, and I think what we don't want to do is respond in the same way, right?
Yeah.
And I know it could be tempting sometimes for parents. You have to remember, too, that a teenage brain is not going to be as capable of managing a hurtful statement like that from a parent as a parent would from a teen, if that makes any sense. And so that could be pretty damaging to the relationship to respond in the same way. And we tend to do that, right? Like we'll match whatever's happening around us. We'll match the energy, the emotion, and the anger levels. It's just not very helpful.
Right. So, I mean, I have experienced this as a parent.
And I think lots of parents do.
Yes. Oh yeah. And that's why I thought of this topic. 'Cause I'm like, it's common. And my reaction was, I'm sorry you feel that way. I love you anyways. And then they usually storm out of the room.
Yeah. And that's probably a great way to handle that.
Yeah.
And I don't want our listeners to think that we're some great parents, because I don't think our kids have said that to us. That's not what we're suggesting here. We've had lots of hurtful things said by our children to us, and we've made lots of mistakes and continue to make mistakes all the time. It just so happens that hasn't been part of it. I don't know if I could even tell you why.
Yeah. I mean,
or we like to forget all those.
Maybe we just forgot because it hurt. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
That's how we deal with it.
There's a 17-year age gap between your oldest and youngest. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. You've got a couple more kids to go. So
I can't say they haven't thought it.
Yeah, that is so true.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of any teen who has at one point not thought their parents were ruining their lives, because, well, sometimes we do. But we do it for very good reasons. And very legitimate reasons, but it doesn't mean that their experience isn't real either. It doesn't mean that it's not the end of their world. It's just, well, we have a better capacity to see what could happen in the future and how to avoid dangers.
Yep.
Okay, so on to helping teens trust themselves. So we're going to start with why self-trust matters more than good choices. So let's talk about the difference between obedience and internal guidance, because I think this is a really interesting concept. And, this idea of why kids do the things that they do, right? So, and I think of my own experience as a teen, and, my mom claimed that I was the easy kid, and I swear she only looks at the teenage years, because I didn't make a ton of bad choices as a teenager. But you know what? I still remember her sitting on me at 10 years old because I was pitching a massive fit and she had to physically restrain me. She still claims that I was the easy kid, but whatever. So, but I look back on my teenage years and I think, why did I make the choices I did? Why did I go down the path that my parents wanted for me? And was it out of obedience, or was it because I wanted to? And I think it really was that I wanted to, right? But, what happens when a kid is just obedient because it's just what mom and dad wants? Do you think it's even possible for a teen to do that?
To do what? Help me understand what you're asking. Because are you asking if it's possible for them to just be obedient because mom and dad said be obedient, or to have an internal compass that guides them?
To have an internal compass that guides them.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to develop, right? And that's what happens in teenagers, is we start to develop mostly in the world, we're going to call that a moral compass, right?
Yeah.
That says, hey, this is right and this is wrong. And I'm not going to do this simply because it's not the right thing to do, not because there's a consequence affixed or a punishment affixed to that decision, right? Like, you might drive 80 miles an hour on a freeway that the speed limit is 70 miles an hour, but you're not going to go over 80 because there's a consequence affixed to that. And you're not willing to accept the results of that consequence, right? And so you go, I'm just going to be obedient because I don't want to deal with a ticket, not because I think I'm morally adverse to going over 80 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So kids, I think, are starting to develop that. A lot of it's going to just be they're obedient because that's what they're supposed to do. And they start to develop characteristics within themselves that kind of guide and direct what they do. I want my children not to use drugs, not because they're being obedient to me, but because they understand that that's not what they want in their lives, right? Mm-hmm. I want my kids to want to make good choices and do good things, not to just do them because I said to do them. And I think that's what we're kind of trying to talk about right now.
Yeah, I think ultimately my goal for my children that I often say to them is not that I want you to choose a certain thing. I want you to want to choose that, right? So not just choosing those things because I'm telling them like this and this and this. I want them to be at the point in their life that they're choosing that they want to choose those things for their life.
I think another way this could also manifest is if you have a teen who's just a people pleaser. And so they're doing things because they want to please you. And it could even be a positive thing that they're doing, but they're only doing it because they just want to please mom and dad. Like maybe they're going down a specific career path or they're doing a specific sport and they're doing it just to please mom and dad when they don't actually like it and they don't actually want to do it. And, that's not necessarily something we want for our kids either. Like if, your kid's been doing, maybe they've been doing piano, right? So my own daughter's in piano and she loves it. But maybe, after 5 years, she decided she hated it, but she felt like she couldn't give it up because I would be so disappointed in her. Well, I would hope that she would feel like she could give it up if she really wanted to, if it was what she truly wanted, right? And so people pleasing, I feel like, is just another way that this can emerge.
Absolutely. And we don't want that either. Of course, we want them to choose all these things because it would be easier and we wouldn't have to experience negative emotions. But the reality is I don't want that either. I don't want children that are people pleasing and just doing things that they think that I want them to do because it's easier that way. There's lots of different scenarios, not just like someone rebelling, and I don't want that. I don't want someone that's people pleasing. I want them to choose because that's what they want to choose.
And I would argue that we have a big struggle with this with friends, where teenagers are making choices and decisions to please their friends more than they're probably making choices and decisions to please their parents, rather than being guided by their own internal thoughts and desires and wants. And I'm not suggesting that we should be only making decisions based on our own internal desires. That's not the case here. But we do want children who are able to evaluate things and make decisions. And this is where it kind of gets complicated for us as parents, right? It's not super cut and dry to build this into our children to help them start to look inward. But I think my opinion is, and maybe Selina's is different, but my opinion is that a lot of this comes from giving them the opportunity to make decisions and choices about their lives, and then to evaluate those decisions and the results of what's happened, right? Like, hey, you wanted to play basketball. What was the season like for you? You really fought us a lot on going to practices. Are you really not enjoying it? Why are you choosing this is a good question. I don't always love why questions because it seems like maybe they're doing something wrong to them, but getting curious about, what's driving this decision to play basketball? Is it because all your friends are, but you don't really enjoy it? Is it because dad wants you to play basketball? What is guiding that? And that's how we can kind of start to develop this capacity to make decisions based on how we want to show up as a human being, how we want to act, what we want to be a part of, what we want to participate in, is exploring like, what's our purpose for making this decision? Are you taking this class because you want to be with these peers of yours that are all taking this class? Or are you taking this class because it's something that interests you, that is going to help you achieve the goals that you've desired?
Yeah, I would agree. That's what I would suggest, is finding opportunities of things that they can make decisions about and building up that decision making and helping them through that process. Because sometimes maybe they don't even realize like, oh, I'm taking this class because I want to be with all these friends and I just don't really even like or enjoy this class, and having those conversations or follow up with that and asking them why. And then it helps them realize like why they are making their choices. Maybe they don't even realize why they're making some of them. And then they could question that, but giving them opportunities to make choices and following through with those. And even if it's things that you're like, this is going to go bad and I'm going to have to deal with this, we can build their confidence in their decisions to make choices, whether it's good or bad, or it works out for them or it doesn't. That's going to start building the confidence for them to be able to listen themselves.
And an important piece of that is allowing them to make the choice. They may be taking a class just because their friends are. And then at the end of that class, the end of the semester or the school year or whatever it might be, we can sit down with them and evaluate, right? Like, okay, you made the decision to take this class. This is what I saw as a parent. I saw a lot of complaining and a lot of frustration, and, the grades didn't come back great or whatever. So what was it like for you? And what are you going to do moving forward? And this is where we start to build the confidence like, oh, you know what? You're right. I'm going to make a different choice because I wasn't happy there. Or, you know what? You were wrong, Dad, or you were wrong, Mom. I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to taking the class next semester again when none of my friends are taking it. And then we're going to start to see confidence built in decision making. And this really can start at such a young age too.
Yeah.
Giving children the opportunity to make decisions for themselves is a key thing. You know, one of the things that Selina and I do in our home is we kind of have a requirement that our kids are involved in extracurricular things, whether that's sports or fine arts or whatever, but we want them to explore different things. And so they have lots of different opportunities to play sports or to be in music or whatever it might be. And it's been such a great thing for our family. And sometimes they've explored things and gone, that wasn't for me. And other times we found new hobbies or new desires. And that really does help build their trust in themselves and in the confidence that we want them to have in moving forward, even when they fail at something, right? That still is an opportunity to build confidence, and it doesn't have to tear them apart, especially when they're the ones making the choices.
Yeah, we experienced that with our oldest. She wanted to do soccer. About a quarter of the way through, she decided she hated it and she didn't want to do it anymore. And, you know, she fought us to go to practice and she begged us not to go. And to be honest, she didn't need to be there. In fact, I think there might have possibly been some teammates who maybe would have preferred she weren't there because she didn't like it, so she didn't try very hard. But we made her go anyways because, well, she made the commitment. And so, and the reason being is we wanted to instill that in her, like when you commit to something, you follow through. But you know what? She's never played soccer again a day in her life. And in fact, she hasn't really gone back to sports. And she's okay with it. We're okay with it. And she has found other hobbies that she loves. And, you know, in fact, she's been able to have a really good connection with Curtis through D&D. Like that is her thing. She absolutely loves it. And, you know, she feels a lot of confidence in it. And so, yeah, I agree. I love this idea of having kids explore different hobbies and different avenues and different things that, you know, that they can learn to love.
What's good about that opportunity that you shared is that she has the confidence that she can tell you, like, I don't really enjoy this, or I want to try something different, because you're open and willing to let her explore that or say how she does or doesn't. I think she also knows that you're going to make her stick through with it. So she might really consider before she commits to something too. But that's great for her to realize and know that too. But I think that is a great example of showing how you're allowing her to be open to express that she is or isn't interested, and to be able to explore those different opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how parents can accidentally undermine self-trust. And I want to say this is probably almost always unintentional. And it's because, well, as parents, we know a lot. We have a lot more experience. And so we know what the right decisions are. But
sometimes.
A lot of times we know what the right decisions are. But they need to learn for themselves what the right decisions are. And as we've said many times, it's actually really important for them to make the wrong decisions when the stakes are low and when it's safe for them, or when it's not going to cause undue harm. It's actually really important for them to make the wrong decisions. So how parents can sometimes undermine self-trust is often over-advising or rescuing. And, this one's hard because it's instinctive to jump in and protect your kid. Like, no, don't do that. It's going to cause this. But sometimes, well, you know what? Sometimes they got to stub their toe and just learn for themselves.
Yeah. Rescuing is, man, it's such a hard one, right? We don't want our kids to feel pain. We don't want things to be hard for them. We want them to just enjoy life and have fun and everything to be perfect and great and wonderful. But the reality is that they do need to experience some harder things sometimes. They do need to go through some things that maybe aren't so pleasant. And allowing them to experience consequences of decisions and choices is a big piece of that. And it's so hard for us. Like, we're probably all guilty of over rescuing or over advising. And we really need to allow them to make choices and then to run with those consequences. Like, you chose this, and this was a decision you made. And so here's the result. Just like, hey, you chose soccer. Now the result is that you're going to have to play, and you're going to have to finish out the season because you have a whole team that's counting on you. And because we don't really love the idea of giving up. Right. And so to rescue them and be like, yeah, she's like not great at it and she really hates it. So let's just pull her. And then we'll justify it with the rest of the team probably doesn't want her there anyway because she's not helpful or whatever. But the reality is that allowing them to go through that, allowing them to experience those things, I think it helps solidify their capacity to reason and make decisions further on in life, right? So when the next choice comes up and we explore that, we can talk about past experiences and help them to remember, like, hey, are you sure you want to go that direction? Would you like to, reconsider that because of past experiences or past things that have happened? And then they can use that in their own lives as examples to look back on.
Mm-hmm. This is something I'm still working on. I've been parenting for 25 years and it's something that I am not good at and I'm still trying to do. And I've seen the benefits when you do allow your kid to have to make those choices and to learn from it. And it's hard and it hurts. I think I'm a planner. And so I want things to go how I planned. And I don't usually plan for things like that. Like, oh, actually the kid doesn't want to play soccer anymore. Because I think my choice would be motivated by, oh, good, we don't have to do that. We can use that time to do something else now.
Oh, yeah.
So to stick through with that, right? And so I have seen the benefits when I am able to remember this. And I have seen it build that confidence in my kids. And I had one child that I worked really hard to do this with. And I think she still hates the words when I say, I have full confidence in your capability to make the right choice. She hated when I'd say that, but that was something we had to work on. Yeah, I think just trying to remember and remember that how it will benefit in the end result. Who do I want my kid to be? What is our goal here? Is this going to help us to get that to the goal that they're capable of being confident and making decisions on their own?
And I think that's another problem that maybe teens can run into is the fear of making decisions. And so they're constantly turning to their parents or to their peers. What do I do? What should I do? I don't know what to do in this situation. How do I handle this? And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, Selina, that sometimes it's good to just say, you got this. Whatever you choose, it's going to work out, and I will be there to help you in any way you need.
Well, we're worried about failure. Failure seems like a bad thing. And so we're trying to avoid failure. So they don't want to make the wrong choice because they don't want to have that failure, right? Mm-hmm. So you could say, hey, we're going to practice and you're going to fail 100 times at things before you can be good at making a choice. So let's make another choice to see and just be okay with failure. And failure is like, what can I learn from it?
Yeah, we see this a lot in young adults today where they're afraid to make decisions or, well, I don't know if my mom would like me to do that, or my dad wouldn't be happy if I made that choice. And you're 22 years old. And while there's nothing wrong with considering how mom and dad might feel about something when you are trying to make a decision, at a certain point, we have to stop making decisions for mom and dad. And we've got to make decisions for ourselves. And if we haven't been given the opportunity throughout our lives, it's more challenging to make those decisions. And then as parents, we get to walk with them when they're younger through, hey, here's the potential consequences and outcomes of this decision. And one of the things that I like to do is when a child is facing maybe a bigger decision, like, hey, where do I want to go to school? Or should I take this job or that job? I like to sit down with them and talk to them a little bit about goals and where do you want to go in life? What direction do you want to go? What do you want to accomplish? And does this decision get you closer to or take you further from those goals and desires? And why does it do that? What's the opportunity cost of making this decision?
Okay, so another thing that can be tricky here that I feel like a lot of parents run into is a lack of intrinsic motivation, right? And this one can be tricky because I'm not sure there's a way to instill in, like, to make your kids want to do something because it's the right choice as opposed to there's a consequence attached to it. For example, you have a kid who is there, maybe they're just turning in assignments just to pass the class rather than putting forth the effort to try to learn something, if that makes sense. So, what are some tips for you guys of how we can help them build, maybe you might call it the desire to do something because it's right rather than I'm doing it because there's a consequence attached if I don't?
Stop using punishment. Punishments really tend to push us more towards that type of value system instead of having our own internal desire to make choices and decisions that guide our lives. We make choices and decisions to get what we want, not because it's the right decision to make, if that makes sense. So we want to give them opportunities to make choices and decisions. We want to guide those and then allow natural consequences when decisions are made instead of punishing children. I don't like punishments. And I know we've probably talked about that 1,000 times on the podcast, but I just don't like punishments. I don't think I think they're effective short term and they accomplish things short term, but in the long term, then we run into these things where we lack the motivation to do things that are just right because they're right, because it gets us going the direction we want to go, or because it helps us achieve a goal. We're just trying to avoid pain or punishment. And so we make decisions to avoid it rather than to direct our lives. I guess I see that as the difference between reacting to life and taking action in our lives. And when we help our children to take action in their lives, they find that motivation because they see the results of what happens, right? They see good results when they make good choices versus reacting as the world comes at them. Punishments cause reaction rather than internal desires and choices to direct their own lives.
I think we also need to realize that we could teach this to our kids and we could not do punishments and we can do all these different things, but kids are going to make their decisions and it's going to come on their time and when they have the experience and when they learn it. This really has to come from them and them learning it and them deciding for themselves, because we could teach them, we can tell them and all those things. But maybe the thought that comes to my mind is more of a, like we've talked of, a mentor role instead of always trying to like teach them and make sure and all this, like being a mentor. And then in our own thoughts and in our own mind and our thoughts and our mindset is like, this is their path. This is how it's going to be. This is for them to learn, instead of trying to control and make sure that they're getting what they need and teaching them and having all this opportunities and that kind of stuff. Is just, sometimes you got to just step back and have the thought process, like, I'm here to help them. And this is their journey and their path for them to learn when they learn these things.
Yeah, their kids are going to make decisions that you don't agree with. And it's certainly going to happen when they're adults, and it's probably going to happen when they are a teen. And so, when they do make a decision and maybe you didn't agree with it, I think it's important to, to try to maintain that connection, right? To try to say, and you don't necessarily have to endorse their decision, right? So you don't have to come out and say, okay, yeah, good job. You chose what I didn't want you to do. I mean, you don't need to do that. In fact, it's okay to say, I don't think you made the right call here, but I respect that it was your decision. That's can be a great way to build confidence. It sounds counterintuitive, but, letting them know that, hey, I respect that this was your choice, tells them that you believe in their ability to make the decision, which is sometimes more important than the decision itself.
Yeah, we want to be careful that we're not like condescending in that response as well, right? Like, hey, here's what I think, but I want you to make the decision. Once they make the decision, they already know you don't agree. It's not that you necessarily need to tell them again, but you say, okay, that's your decision and let's go with that. And then we get to, if things all fall apart, then we get to evaluate, right? Like, what did you learn from that? And what do you think you might do differently next time? And was this a good experience for you? And how can I better support you? Those kinds of questions can be helpful. They don't need us to come back and say, I told you so, and beat them up when things go awry, because we might give them advice and direction that could go just as bad, right? We want to build that connection there. And when we have the connection, we can have those conversations, and it's going to be a lot more effective, and we're going to have greater motivation, and things are going to move in a better direction. I love that Selina brought up this mentor idea or coach idea rather than I'm going to make all your decisions for you. Because when we make all decisions for our children, they actually become weak and incapable. Yep. And it's kind of a scary situation. We've seen that happen with some of the folks that we've worked with in the past.
Yeah. Kids need room to fail, and the best place to do it is at home, because home is a safe place. And sometimes the only way to build up something is after it's broken. And so kids, they just need a chance to make the wrong choice. And so you giving them that opportunity can create so much growth. And it does mean that there's going to be pain sometimes. And, it's so natural to want to protect our kids from that, but they have to grow the muscles. With no pain, no gain. And it's just a fact of life and a fact of letting them grow up. Final thoughts.
I think my final thoughts on this is that it's important to help your children learn to trust themselves. It's also important to help them realize that it's normal to be worried and uncertain and to doubt. And I think maybe a great way to do that would be to model that for them or share with them, like, man, I remember when I was stuck with this one decision of, do I take this job or do I move to this place? And I was really worried, and maybe share some of our own failures and what we learned from that and how we're growing, and helping them to see that learning to trust ourselves and learning to follow kind of our inner voice really has a lot to do with experience and going through hard things and making decisions that aren't the best. And sometimes even failing. Failing is such a great opportunity to learn and to grow from. Helping our kids to go through that process could really pay big in their adult life.
I think that your belief and your confidence in them and their abilities to make choices can carry them forward, and to help see the end result of what you want for them, so that they can be able to make those choices and to make that a part of themselves and who they are and what they want in their life.
Yeah. Yep. Great takeaways. Okay. So next week, we are going to get into connection through conflict, and we will see you all next week. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.